Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leja, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
Hi, I'm Don McLaughlin. I'm a candidate for House District 80, which consists of Webb County, Uvalde County, Dimmitt County, Zavala County, Frio County, and Atascosa County. I'm also a small businessman, and I know what it takes to run a small business. And for too long, we've had too much government regulation coming into our small business and making it tougher and tougher for us to survive and get by. And that's one of the things I hope to change. Small business is the backbone of the state of Texas, and we need to make sure it thrives and that they have the support they need in government and less government regulation.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today I got a great guest, a candidate that's running for City Council of Laredo, Ms. Tannya Benavides. How we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. How's everything? How's the campaign? Tell me about that.
It's going really well. We're still on the ground, going to stay on the ground until the very last day. But the response had been really good with voters, just getting in front of them and meeting them at their doors. And we're hoping for a good outcome on November 5th.
How do you see the voters? How are they reacting, especially with all this, the crisis we had here with the water and oil ban?
Yeah, the tune has changed. I would say, like, before all of this, people were expressive of, we want change, right? But, like, hopeful, right? Or, like, the first thing that I get is like, eres tú. Like, when I show my campaign literature, and I'm like, yeah, it's me. But, after that October 10th date, we were out there, and some people didn't know 24 hours later that we were in a boil notice, especially like elderly folks. Some shared that their neighbors had to come knock on their doors and let them know because they knew you're not on social media. I don't know if you've seen the news. So people have been preoccupied with that for sure. People have been worried about the flushing that took place on Monday and Sunday. And in general, it just kind of became like about making sure that people were okay and meeting their needs, right? Which is why when you have like a mayor and a council that are pretending to prioritize voter outreach and getting out the vote, but then they fail on something as basic as providing water, that shows at the doors, right? Voters are not going to respond well to, you're here to ask for my vote. I don't have running water that's potable, that's safe.
Yeah, and that's I think that the thing that's going to happen now that I'm looking at, I see a lot of people voting out of a demeanor of being resentful, not trusting the government, not trusting the local government. They don't trust the city. They're looking for an avenue of, why is this happening? Everybody needs to go. That's the attitude that we're getting right now. And I believe that that we're going to see a lot of changes. I think we're going to see a lot of voters come out this time around. I think this election we're going to see that.
I hope so, because people have a right to be upset, right?
Sure.
We spoke about this. I think we spoke about the water at length without knowing that we would be in the situation again. But it is the most basic thing that our local government provides, right?
Yeah. Water safety.
It's a shame that safety now and safety, we spoke about this too, right? 20, 40 years down the line.
And that's what we need. That's what we need. You know, we need to. I've been following it. You know, we did a little research as soon as it happened. I said, let's find out exactly what's going behind this. Let's find out what's going on across the state. There's a lot of cities that get water boil bans, but it's how they're presenting it that's different. You know, it's always that Laredo mentality. Let's sweep something under the rug and let's see, nobody's going to notice. I think people are now noticing everything that's going on more so. After 2022 now, I think everybody's like, has their eyes focused on they're looking at everything, scrutinizing every movement, which in a way it's good. But what I'm getting at is what has happened. I know that they removed it yesterday, but you've been following it? You've been there.
I've been following it pretty recently. So first of all, I was really upset when this Monday meeting got scheduled at noon. This was one of the two meetings that was canceled on October 1st, right? So the council met again in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. It was Tuesday, October 1st. They met at noon to cancel official city business 9 days before the boil notice, right? So you're saying, in effect, council still ended up having two meetings in October, despite them finding it necessary to cancel city business so that they could focus on voters. They could focus on campaigning. We have current council members running for re-election. The mayor didn't outline a plan for council members to engage and get out the vote, aside from those, 3 council members that are running for re-election. And it was just, that was baffling. I don't think anybody is talking about that nearly enough. That I can remember in recent history, the last 10 years, has a mayor ever canceled regularly scheduled city business? I don't think so. I think we can look back and find that that is not common. And 9 days before a boil notice, that makes you scratch your head. The interim city utilities director had already been out there, that he was on his way out before the boil notice happened. On September 19th, the city manager drafted an agreement with the consultant that was identified by Strategic Government Resources, the firm that has supported with different, they're headhunters, so they're the ones that have helped with finding different city management for Laredo before. And so these pins were already in line before chaos hit and before we had to start boiling our water. If you go into the TCEQ website, there is a site where they track water drinkability, right, and safety. You will find, at least that was reported, E. coli samples turning back positive as early as February of 2024.
That's in Laredo.
In Laredo.
And nothing
February
was, and nothing
2024, nothing was done because state regulations say that if you have one sample pop up, you have to test it again. If it doesn't come back negative, you don't have to take action. The problem is that this became a pattern. So it happened in February, it happened in May. If you remember, we had a free chlorine conversion in May, and they didn't say why, right? But presumably this could have been the reason. And then August, you start having different samples pop up every other week. It's never the same sample twice, and that's why they didn't have to. Certainly, could they have issued a boil notice at the time? Absolutely, they could have. They could have done the free chlorine conversion then. It could have been prevented to the extent that it got in October. Come October, this is when the same sample that comes back positive once tests positive again, and that's what immediately triggered. At that point, the state had to intervene. It was no longer in Laredo's hands, right? But someone should have gone, why is this happening? Period, right? Regardless of, oh, good to go, nothing to see here. It came back negative the second time, moving along. And the city manager drafting this agreement, making at least what seemed like an internal announcement that that the director would be gone, that was what this entire meeting on Monday was about. But in my opinion, it was like, look, we're doing something. It's like, you're not gonna fool me. You've been doing this. This has been in the works. This is not your reaction or how you address the situation. Now, not even to mention, no less than 14 hours before we were there at that Monday meeting, the mayor had called his own emergency declaration after the governor had already issued state of disaster in Laredo. So the back and forth, the inconsistencies with the way that they handled the situation. I know they were very critical of social media and what was going around there. People want answers.
They want answers. People, when you look at the comments, people are very upset. People do not trust the city whatsoever. I basically said, let's see who's going to resign and let's see who's going to get fired, because apparently we've had this before. One of them, it happened in 2019. He ended up becoming assistant city manager. Okay, and he was a director at the time. So if that's going on then, and it's been going on every year, and this individual that just Mr. Garcia or Arturo Garza, I believe his name. He was quoted stating in one other incident that we had here, one of the other boil bands, as I dropped the ball. Well, how many times did he drop the ball after that? Because I believe it was in 2002, was it? And see, it first started in 2019. So there have been 8 since then. And the utilities director, Mia, because of that, right after that, he ended up becoming assistant city manager. And then in...
it was one of the 2021. No.
Maybe we'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one that lasted 10 days.
Yeah.
That summer.
Yeah, it was in July 2021 when we had city manager Robert Eads there. Garcia took the blame, saying he dropped the ball. Now this is 21. Then we also had a water ban in 22, 23, and of course now. The same individual that's in there. So we have to start being more responsible of how we take care of that. There's a lot of stories going on out there. There's some that there was illegal connections from potable to non-potable water to potable water of the city. And there was over, I don't know how many, 200 different connections of that type. Now, why were those 200 connections there? You know what I'm saying? Who gave those
unnoticed
for such a long time?
200 is not a small number, right? So the fact that that wasn't uncovered until now, that's a head scratcher.
So do we have, that puts open another thing. Is our building and planning inspectors at fault here as well?
There's plenty of blame
so let's put, I don't want to point fingers, but let's start looking at those options. Let's find out those solutions, because you might fix the problem now, but if it's an inspector that's doing something nefarious, allegedly, you're going to start seeing people say, this is a problem.
Yeah.
So we really have to look at the whole picture, and I think I think the council and everybody needs to start saying, you know what? If there's a criminal element that needs to be taken care of, it should be taken care of now.
Right.
Not just sweep it under the rug like a lot of stuff happens. If people need to get dismissed from their jobs or fired, go now. Not resign and get full pension, like a lot of times it happens. And nobody's taking the scapegoat approach. Nobody's taking the blame. It's a dysfunction, and it's more dysfunctional every time you look at it. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know. We better get people inside, that understand this and kind of get the bull by the horns and kind of let's put it down and get it branded or let it go out into pasture, become wild. Because right now
it's not getting better with time. It's not getting better with, this administration in particular. And what it seems like to me, I spoke to an informant, a confidential source, and what they have uncovered is that it's layers of issues, as you said. Certainly not enough backflow prevention devices, not enough operators that are constantly on top of that. A lot of not a good map or layout of where the cross contaminations could be taking place, where the leaks could be happening, because you have a sewer line that is too close to a potable water line. And that is what ties back to these illegal connections, right? Which, okay, great, you're pointing those out, but let's not just put the blame on the people that put these connections in. There has to be someone else.
We have inspectors.
We should have
We have building
knowledge.
inspection. You have plumbing inspectors. There are building inspectors that come in there and they check off to see if this is done right. There has to be something there, and we have problem there. I've seen it. I made a complaint on one I told you the other day that had that. And when you talk to electricians and air conditioning men and general contractors, they all had complaints about this specific individual for years, and he's still working there. So, I think Laredo has to stop, and I'm not saying Laredo the citizens, because the citizens, it's a different story. I'm talking about the municipality. They have to start taking the responsibility. And that's the whole thing here. What's going to happen? Right now it should be, people's jobs should be on the line. Right. And we should be looking at something else and quit looking for others from out of town to come help us. I think we have the know-how, the capability, the people in here that can do that.
Yeah, and I think, part of that is we need the leadership, right? Like, as you said, we need someone to be able to come in and clean house. And we spoke about this too, the first time I was here, in the context of other things, right? But I think this failure, the magnitude of this failure is a really good example of just how prevalent the dysfunction is.
I'm wondering if in the next couple of days we're going to get it again.
You have to wonder.
Because right now
that was this informant. That was a critique that they shared. You pump a bunch of chlorine into the system. Yes, that is the right thing to do to kill E. coli. But if you still don't have an answer as to why, how, when, is it going to happen again, which is a possibility, then flushing the system just so that we can move on for now means that, we still don't have the answer. We still don't have the solution. And certainly we don't have the systems in place that we should, right? Yeah. We have to wonder, is it going to happen again? And at that point, what is going to be people's response, right? Because right now what it seems like to me is they wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to move forward so that people can just go out and vote and we can, continue as usual. But there, again, back to this cancellation of the meetings and canceling city business. When we didn't have a utilities director, that to me shows a lack of judgment and a lack of leadership, because you knew you had to have known how vulnerable we were if E. coli had been popping up in the water since August. And instead of making it a priority to hire a new utilities director, your priority was to cancel council meetings so that people could forget about your pay raises.
You're right. You're right on that. Right now, I bring it on that. I think the pay raise should stop. I think all these other expenditures. I think number one thing right now, the priority is the water and make it potable for everybody else. All other assessments of let's build parks, let's build this, and right now let's do that first. It's priority number one. Everything else, put it in the back burner. Think about it down the road. Right now we need to take care of this.
You know, and their priority was, let's figure out how to give ourselves more money.
Yeah.
That was their priority. It wasn't even anything else, right? Dr. Tyler King pointed out at the meeting on Monday, like, that they spent 3 to 4 hours during budget season talking about this third-party funding, and there was a lot of controversy in those conversations. And he was like, we had like 2 minutes of a discussion of our capital improvement projects. We just glossed right over it. So why are we not, as you said, taking the bull by the horn with tackling the biggest issues that we have? And it's because, in my opinion, we have a lot of self-interest, right, in council, and not, I guess, yeah, I'm going to say it again, it's just a lack of leadership, right? Mm-hmm. Lack of recognizing what the top priority should be, and what the top failures are, and addressing that. Because if you don't nip that in the bud, if you don't recognize that there's a real issue with the way that government operates, you're not going to be able to tackle the problems within local government.
Absolutely. Now let's change the subject a little bit, because number one, you have a raise that you have to go in there, and I know this is a very important issue. But the issue is, how do you feel about everything? How do you feel about your race? How do you feel about?
Oh, I feel great. You know, we're a packed ballot in District 4. It's the only open seat. I am the only woman on the ballot. I think it's important to say that District 4 hasn't had a female leader since, I believe, Miss Cecilia Moreno, which was in 1992. That was the year I was born. So it's time for some new leadership, you know. And we have a packed ballot, 4 other male candidates and 1 write-in candidate, another female, right? And I think the way that I see my race is, and what I heard from people, as I told you, before the water boil notice, it was a different tune, right? People were just ready for change. During the water boil notice, that obviously becomes people's priority, and the fact that their needs aren't being met. So if people go to the polls and they are upset, good. You know,
let them, and they're gonna vote. They're gonna express that opinion. Watch what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a different voting. You know what I'm afraid of, though. You can do all that stuff, and they can vote out of there. I'm still afraid of the ballot harvesting, the mail-in ballots, because there's always some form or fashion that it's no longer in the up and up. They've already changed the game, and I think that right there is what we have to be concerned of. And has there been fraud before in the past? Yes, we had fraud the last election here. And so we need to worry about that. And it was proven in court that there was fraud. And I don't know if something was done, not done, I don't know. So a lot of people have a lot of resentment. There's a lot of apathy because of that, and they don't have that voter turnout. But I think right now it's different. But I think right now we have to be careful with the voter fraud, and look at the ballot harvesting dramatically, and as well as the mail-in ballots.
Yeah, you know, these are tactics of the Patrón system, right? Which we've also spoken about before. And it's, yeah, like this idea that the system is there for the taking, when voting should be people's own personal, private right to exercise. And yeah, you know, it's a right to vote. It's not a privilege, and we've had to fight very hard to have that right to vote. Right? There's people that While I've been on the campaign trail, I've talked to them about, I remember when there was a poll tax. I remember when you had to pay to vote, right? And to think that now we have that right, but it's still being corrupted in these ways, it is a concern. And I mean, what can we do about it? I think like if you know that it's happening, and if you know
Voice
that,
up and
if you know who is facilitating it, things like that have to be reported, right?
absolutely, absolutely, I'm with you on that. Well, we're in the third day of early voting. We got one more week, and it's over within a week and a half.
Yeah, November 1st is the last day for early voting. So this week,
Friday, but
Friday,
but Saturday,
November 1st.
Sundays, this weekend we can vote,
there's
right?
voting. So right now, daily it's from 8 to 5. Saturday, I believe it's from 8 to 8, and then Sunday it's from 12 to 6. Next week we shift to 8 to 8 Monday through Friday, and then on November 5th it's going to be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay. Alrighty, we'll do this. We'll leave you because we're running out of time. So, folks, go out there. You're going to vote. Study the candidates. Read about each and every one of them. Don't be afraid. If you see something that's wrong, there's judges there at the polling sites.
There's
You can
also
voice
a
yourself.
hotline, 866 Our Vote. That is a voter protection hotline where you can report any issues, you can report any mishappenings, and get information as well.
Absolutely. So we'll leave you with this. Until next time, you all stay safe, be safe, and God bless you all.